out there, Packer Nation, and welcome to episode 38 of the Absolute Packer Podcast. I have Jeremy, and we have another special guest today because Elliot's feeling a little bit under the weather. He was so stunned at some of the news that he became physically ill. So we need Dakota.
And now we just call him Elliot Perry, as in Nick Perry.
Oh Lord, yeah. But
I had to throw that one in there.
No, it's good. It's good. We so happy to have Dakota Bernhardt in here again. He's one of our super fans, and so we can keep the trifecta of having three people going again. And here's how I'll kind of start this off. Truth be told, I didn't really have much interest in watching this game before it even started. And so I went with my daughter to a place up north about half an hour, and we went and cut down a Christmas tree. It's one of those things where you can cut one down yourself. So we were up there. We left Green Bay at about 11:30. We got up there at about noon, right around when the game started, hung out for a little bit. And I got home. Let's see. I think it was right about, it was 2 minutes into the third quarter when I turned on the game. And it was 10-7 Green Bay winning at that point. And I was like, oh, this is nice. So I wasn't really missing much. And then I proceeded to kind of get some of the tree in the house and stuff like that. I was watching out of the corner of my eye some of the game. But that was the extent of my interest in that game. And then I just basically watched as, man, that was a terrible game. I don't know how good the first half was, but the second half was awful. Everything you could think of, it was a microcosm of the season. A lot of these games are, they pissed it away. Although the team, I don't think I've seen the team be this uninspired and look this lethargic, almost like they're resigned to their fate, if you will. Mm-hmm. And then to cap it all off, Crosby misses a field goal to send it into overtime. So that was fitting as well. Packers fall 20-17 to the, what were they, is it the 2-9 Arizona Cardinals, who, they came into cold, snowy Lambeau and beat us. So obviously not a good look, but that's about the extent of what we can talk about for this game, I believe, because a couple hours later, they put the hammer down. There was some news. Some big news, and I'll put it over to my other colleagues to kind of jump in on this stuff and get your thoughts, because they shit canned McCarthy very quickly after the game.
Yeah, it didn't take very long after the game to get the fireworks going. It kind of sounds like what happened. Mike McCarthy addressed the media, so did Aaron Rodgers, and then pretty much after everybody addressed the media, it sounds like somebody came down, got Mike McCarthy, and told him to go up to Mark Murphy's office. Obviously, probably Mike, when he heard that, was not thinking anything good about going to come up to that. I mean, what would make you think that there's anything good? But sounds like it was a pretty quick and
free pass down the sledding hill. Maybe that's what he's going to get.
There you go. Just
sorry,
it was a pretty quick. I don't know exactly what was said, but I'm pretty sure it went something like this. Hey, Mike, you know what? It's time. It's time. We're done. And it sounds like McCarthy was very professional and was very thankful, like he always is. The one thing I think that we can always look back on and appreciate about McCarthy is the man was full of integrity. He was very humble. He had a good heart. And I think he led this team in a positive manner. They were never a team that was in the news because of, showboating or showing people up or anything like that. They went out to play the game, and that's what they did. And that was their job. So it was, very good to see 13 years of very successful football. For the most part, towards the end, obviously, that's why we're talking about Mike McCarthy not being the coach of the Packers anymore. And it's kind of a sad trombone For many people, there you go. And I don't think it's more. I mean, there are some fans out there, and I'll talk about this later in the episode, that I just don't understand people sometimes. But I think we all kind of anticipated and wanted this to happen. I think we all anticipated it happening after the season. I don't think any of us thought it was going to happen, game 13 or game 12, excuse me. That was the shocker. It's the first time in Packers history that they have released a coach in the middle of the season.
Did you guys predict that, though? I think on one of the episodes I was watching, someone mentioned that if we did lose to the Cardinals, that might be ultimately it for McCarthy.
Yeah, I think I said that when I was messaging you guys. It would not surprise me, if they lost today, that McCarthy could be gone tomorrow. There was somebody else out there on Twitter that was talking about they had insider knowledge that if the Packers lost to the Cardinals, that Mike McCarthy was going to be let go. But from what everything came out of Mark Murphy's and Brian Gutekunst's press conference today, it doesn't sound like it was made. The decision was made previous to the game. It sounded like the decision was made after the game, after the culmination of one of the most horrible losses in most recent history. Murphy finally had a backbone. I have to give him credit. This is a very distinctive move. It was a very poignant move. Goot made a few moves in the middle of the season by trading Clinton Dix and Ty Montgomery, getting some cancers off this team. And he saw this team was absolutely going nowhere. And in fact, was in the lowest funk that we've been since 2005, pre-McCarthy era, So I think he made the right decision. It showed me a little something. I think I've said in previous episodes that I don't know if Murphy had the backbone to do what was right, and he did. I might not agree with the move wholeheartedly because I'm not a big fan of getting rid of coaches in the middle of a season. But this was a necessary move. This team, after the game, Randall Cobb was poignantly asked, what he thought. If Mike McCarthy has lost the team, and Randall Cobb, quote for quote, said, "I am here to play football. My feelings don't matter," unquote. And reading between the lines of what he meant by that, this locker room was lost.
Yeah.
So when that happens, you have to move on, and that's where we sit today. We're Monday here after the game, and I think all of Packer Nation is either in a complete panic mode or they're completely relieved. But I don't know how you could be completely relieved quite yet, because now the future is quite unknown, and we have the quadrilateral authority cut down a little bit. I'll let Andy decide what he wants to call the authority level of this team from this point forward. But
now it's a triangle of authority because one of them's missing. There's no chair for the head coach, so they'll have to put a cardboard cutout for now. But I'm not all kidding aside, I am not a fan of that power structure. I know Murphy has said that other organizations kind of function that way. I don't think it's good at all. I know that Ron Wolf had said there's no way he would have came to Green Bay if he didn't have full authority. I don't even think Ted Thompson would have, come to Green Bay if he had full authority. So it's just that move that Gutekunst made earlier. I guess it was earlier this year after he had hired Gutekunst. It's an odd look, And I know that Murphy's trying to put his imprint on the team. And when I watched the press conference today, he made some good points in that I think he was the athletic director of Northwestern before this. And he played in the NFL, I think, for the Redskins for a number of years. So football, he's been in football for a long, long time, but that doesn't necessarily mean, you need to interject in areas like this, and you need to create structures that create these strange, ways of how people have to report to each other and whatnot. I mean, to me and to anybody else, I got to think, if you're a GM, you want total control over the team, the personnel, the coach. That's just period in the story. So if Murphy's going to stand by that, that's fine, and we'll have to see, how good he is, because this is going to be his bright shining moment. He can't screw this up. That's for damn sure. And looking back at Murphy, when they first got hired, what was the first thing that happened to him? The Brett Favre fiasco. I mean, that wasn't easy for anybody to come into, but he basically came in, and I'll never forget the image of him flying down to Mississippi with a sweaty suitcase full of money, trying to pay off Brett Favre with like $20 million to stay retired. that was a poor decision. Didn't look good in any way, shape, or form. But again, so I'll say he kind of quote unquote botched that, but that wouldn't have been easy for anybody to get in that position. And that was right, when he got here. But yeah, to say I was stunned when they announced that he had got fired. I mean, it wasn't Black Monday; it was Christ's Black Sunday. They only waited like an hour after the game. Which, a couple things it told me, to your point, Jeremy. I mean, if they lost to the Cardinals, they were like, "This is it. This is the end." But it also made me think, how long? And this is just hypothetical stuff, but how long and how much confidence and how with this power structure. So, they fire Dom Capers, they bring in Mike Pettine, and apparently when they brought in Gutekunst, Mike McCarthy was involved with that decision to get it the GM. Is that, I don't know if that's true or not. That's what I've heard.
Yeah, it sounds like that was kind of the whole triangle.
And that's fucking dumb. I mean, people are asking, should Rodgers have any authority over the next GM? Or over the next coach? No. And McCarthy shouldn't have had any say over so it was a weird passing of the torch. You know what I mean? They were like, okay, we've had this structure, but now we're going to get rid of the defensive coordinator. We'll get some input on the head coach. We're not going to renew his contract. We're going to kind of wait and see what happens. And then it was almost like it was destined to fail. Who thought that setup could work? So where I'm going with this, though, is, was Murphy or Gutekunst, did they know way earlier that McCarthy was gone? Did they make that decision?
No, I don't think it was. No, I don't know for sure, but I'll just go out there and state my opinion. I don't think the decision was made. I think it was talked about, based off of what was transpiring during the season. I would think likely after the Seattle game, that was probably maybe when the second or third conversation probably came up. But it was probably the most serious conversation, just because of how that game, fell through. It was a replay of the 2014 NFC Championship where we started out real strong and then just kind of, laid an egg. But I think I want to make 2 points about this whole deal that I think will shape how this team is going to decide what's going to happen here from here on out. In today's press conference, Mark Murphy, was talking or they were asking questions about the structure, the quadrilateral authority.
Yeah, they were hitting them pretty good. Some of the other beat writers were really trying to say,
"Yep." And
are you sure about this kind of a thing?
And Murphy said that he is not. And the telling statement or the telling answer to one of the questions was, quote, "I'm not going to hire a coach Brian isn't comfortable with," unquote. That was what Murphy said. So that right there suggests and would tell me that he is given full authority to hire the next coach. Gutekunst has the willingness and the say in the whole matter, but the final decision is going to go through Mark Murphy. Which can be, you can take that one of two ways. I don't know how you take that, but to me, Gutekunst is like a kid who just got his driver's license. He was presented with, "Oh, you got a brand new shiny car, but you know what? Every time you got to take that car out, you got to ask Daddy if you can go or not."
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
It's almost. It reminds me of back in my days, when I got my license. So I think the training wheels eventually have to come off here. I'm not going to ever say that Murphy isn't qualified to make that decision. Obviously, he has a career in football. From the college days to leading Northwestern to playing with the Redskins, and obviously coming here. The one thing that I will counter is he has not been in a position to hire or fire coaches per se. Obviously with Northwestern, he probably had a little bit more wiggle room with that. But the other thing is he has not handled personnel decision making in his whole entire career, whether it was from playing or, even at Northwestern. That's a whole different ball game. You're talking about scholarship players. We're talking about, professional athletes making millions of dollars here. The talent aspect of it, I have to question. To me, it reminds me of me going in there, who has not played football and thinks that he's really good at something that maybe he's just a little underqualified for. So I have to question that. I guess that's my take on it.
Well, maybe during the interview process, it'll be like high school where they slide the note across the table and it says, "Do you like me? Yes, no, maybe." And then they hand it over to Mark Murphy and he makes the final decision.
Yeah, it sure is.
Yeah. It's, this whole season and kind of the downturn. I think we lost Dakota there for a little bit.
Yeah, I think I'm back now.
No, you are back. We hear you, buddy. This is very depressing to talk about, so I don't blame you for dropping off at any time.
Could take it.
But, looking over the past couple of years, and a lot of these national media articles that are coming out, SI is coming out with articles that are, they're like, oh, Rogers wants to, they're having a pissing match between McCarthy and Rogers of who can make the better play call and this, that, or the other. And it's like, there's some odd stuff going on. And it's been going on for years, whatever. But I've made this comment to you, Jeremy. I think that, it's hard to quantify, and this goes to Rogers, Rogers is a tough player in my opinion, to evaluate almost from a fan's perspective and even people who can see the all-22 and stuff like that. And Ben Fennell, who does some breakdowns on Twitter, he has some really cool stuff where basically he's saying, the game has always been such that the pro game has been geared that quarterbacks, they're very regimented, they have footwork, they have progressions, they have timing. And that's how it's always been with every quarterback, save for maybe like a Brett Favre for a while. But Aaron Rodgers takes that into the next stratosphere. The guy is like so talented that he can turn what would be a set offense with certain progressions, and he can look at it and say, I could run this or I could run it my way, and he's the only, it's kind of hard to describe, but he's the only player who could do this. And I think to me, almost, I'm looking back, I'm like, maybe he did it that way for a while. Because I know McCarthy always used to say, our offense is geared. The most important thing is to make the quarterback successful. And maybe for a while, the offense was geared around, okay, McCarthy, and this is hypothetical, but you're sitting there in early in Rodgers' career, McCarthy's going, okay, Rodgers has a ton of talent. It's obvious to see, but he's a different player. He doesn't necessarily have, go through progressions. He's got outstanding footwork and all this kind of stuff, but we need to make our offense such that scrambling should be one of the first things that we want him to do. And getting out of the pocket and making plays, with when coverage breaks down after a while. I don't know if you kind of know what I mean, but it's like, it's almost hard to describe because give me another player who can make some of the throws he does. Now, like the throw to Tanyan, I think it was that third string tight end. They're like a 55-yard dart across his body, falling down. And the guy caught it right there for a touchdown. Those are some of the great plays he can make, but we almost wonder if they tried to make the offense a certain way for Rodgers, and then after the Super Bowl, we'll say after even the NFC Championship debacle in Seattle, where it's like McCarthy, how shall I say this? McCarthy was like, okay, look, you're getting older, you're still really talented, but let's try and rein you into a more progression-based offense, where Rodgers was like going the exact opposite way. He's like, whoa, look at this. I can do whatever I want. I'm Superman. I can make whatever play I want. And so maybe that's where McCarthy and Rodgers started to diverge, where McCarthy's like, he built that offense for him, but he knows he needs to get it a little more focused and structured, where Rodgers went the other way. So they're these two ships that are just diverging from each other. And at some point they had to give. And this was the year where I think we can basically say this without, people disagreeing. The Packers haven't had a whole lot of talent around Rodgers for the last few years. They've had some good players. Have they had all pros here and there? No. I mean, let's go down the list. I mean, I would say Aaron Rodgers, he wasn't an all pro this year. I mean, you could say on his normal year, he's a very good player to all pro. Outside of that, give me an all pro or a special player on this team over the past 4 or 5 years. Aaron Jones could be that, but they don't like running backs in Green Bay. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, give me other quote unquote special players. They're not there.
You're right. They're not there. But I mean, we've got the best left tackle in the game in David Bakhtiari. We've got a budding star in Kenny Clark on the defensive line. Devontae Adams, obviously at receiver, who's definitely shown himself to be a top 5 receiver in this league this year. But outside of those players mentioned, I'm not going to throw Aaron Jones in yet because he hasn't played a full season. He's been hurt. His production has been sporadic, not by choice per se, except for last year when he was hurt. But I'm not throwing him in the conversation yet because he has to be given the opportunity yet.
Sure.
But outside of those players I just named, Adams, Bakhtiari, Kenny Clark, and Aaron Rodgers, out of your 53-man roster, who else on this team is what I like to call a difference maker?
Nobody, damn near nobody.
Somebody that can change a game in a play. We don't have that. And yesterday it was poignantly obvious that the lack of playmakers out there, it was so sore to see. It contributed to the fact that we lost to a 2-9 Arizona team. It was a game that was just begging for a big play. It was a game that was begging for turnovers, and it was not there. You had guys that were on their heels a lot of the game. But I'm not going to point people out and say that they weren't trying, but I can look at a few players where I don't think they were given 100% on every single play. They were more concerned with, we know where this team is going.
Yeah.
We know where we're going after the year. I'm not gonna risk my personal, self for this cause. I'm signing out. It felt very much like that. And that's the part of it that McCarthy lost, was getting his players to keep on, feeding into the game. We talked about John Harbaugh in Baltimore. His name has been on the hot seat. I tell you what, you watch his teams, they don't give up on him. He has a way to inspire his team to, if they're 5-5, even last year, when they came into Green Bay, they were 5-5. On the brink of being a playoff team, and they won the rest of won the remaining 4 games, got to the last game against the Bengals and lost on a real freak play. But they were there, and they were being pushed and they were being motivated. I don't think that was happening here. The part that really, when you watch the good coaches out there, you watch the good offensive minded coaches like the Sean Paytons, the Sean McVays, the Doug Petersons, and even the Andy Reids. When their team is on defense, they're huddling with their offense and discussing whatever. They're going over the tablets and seeing what the defense has presented to them. They're looking for ways to improve. They're looking for ways to expose, maybe a weakness that came up on a certain play, or a coverage that maybe said, oh, you know what, maybe we can break this one. I didn't see that with McCarthy.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think that over McCarthy's tenure, he's been a pretty good coach, but let's face it, on game day, he's a play caller. He's never doing it. I've never seen him really get involved with anything else on the sidelines with other position coaches or whatever. He's sitting there with his play sheet. He is a play caller on game day.
I see that play sheet one more time. I mean, that's all you see during the games is McCarthy. I always say, if you don't know the play you want to call by now, I mean, you should know those plays. Yeah. It seems like he looks at that thing like, oh, what play can I pick here? It's like, you should already know.
Yeah, and I don't know the rest of the league that well. But I mean, obviously you got Belichick. He's a fantastic coach. And when I do remember watching him, before and whatnot, he's all over the sidelines everywhere. He's involved. Some of these other coaches in game day real time, they are involved. So McCarthy definitely did kind of lack that. And I don't, would that have won him a bunch of other games and whatnot? I don't know. But he didn't seem a coach on the field. He was just essentially a play caller. And that I don't know if the NFL is going in the direction of, do you have more of coaches who coach or just specialty play callers? Who the hell knows? But the one time he tried to do that, remember, was after the Seattle debacle. And then what happened? The offense fell apart and he took the play calling back. That was 2015, if my memory serves me correct. And that was Jordy Nelson got hurt the first time, right?
In the preseason against Pittsburgh. Yep.
Right. And the whole offense fell to shit. Jordy Nelson, the cog and the whole thing. But I think these things also exposed how Rodgers himself, he doesn't trust rookie wide receivers, even when he's forced into it. This year, he's got to throw to some rookie wide receivers. Everybody's giving him all this credit and saying all this stuff. Yeah, you had so many passes without an interception. That's fantastic in terms of stats. I'm watching the play on the field, and it's not very good. It's subpar.
How many times do you throw a risky ball? The deep balls, wouldn't you like to see him maybe underthrow it a little bit to give someone a chance, or maybe a chance for pass interference instead of overthrowing everyone?
He's not.
I saw many underthrows, including yesterday.
I did too. Yeah. Oh God. Yeah, I saw a couple that. Yeah, in the dirt. He had a few in the dirt yesterday. That's something you should never see. You're seeing it a lot. But yeah, it's.
I want to just talk about McCarthy's statistical record on the offense. We talk about how he's just a pure offensive guy. The numbers do state that since 2006, since he came into the league and started with Green Bay, he has not had 2017 was probably the worst statistical offensive year in Mike McCarthy's history. They were 27th in points, 26 in total yards, 26th in yards, 21st in points.
And he had to hurt Aaron Rodgers, obviously.
Right, and giveaways. Exactly. You're right. Exactly right. 2016, they were in the top 10 in all. 2015, they were a little bit lower. They were anywhere from 4 in giveaways. They had the 4th best giveaway ratio in the league, but yards and points, they were 15 and 23rd. For 2014, they were in the top 5 in all categories. 2013, they were in the top 10, except for takeaway or giveaways, they were 15th. 2012, top 10 in all. 2011, they were actually third in yards, 1st in points. 2010, their Super Bowl year, they were 9th in yards and 10th in points. And then 2009, they were 6th in yards and 3rd in points. So, statistically speaking, he put some phenomenal stats up in this offense, which you can attribute a lot of that to Aaron Rodgers and a lot of weapons on the outside with Jordy Nelson and Donald Driver and James Jones, so on and so forth. But, his statistical analogy or his statistical capture of his 13 years here were pretty good. And I think a lot of people get really hard on him. And you have justifiable reason to give him a hard time in the past couple of years. Their offense has obviously become very stagnant. And obviously, even for me and you, Andy, and Dakota, I'm sure you're the same way. We were starting to, anticipate calls and routes and stuff like that. So, a
lot of defensive players have said they know exactly what's coming. And hell, they can defend it and know it better than the freaking wide receiver. Right. Not good.
Right. You just can't keep on beating a dead horse. And that's what we were trying to do. This whole year, if I'm a creative coach, offensive guy, I'm going to go into this year where Chicago, great game, Minnesota, not so good, Washington, horrible, Buffalo, okay. There was nothing in there that set these offenses apart from any other team in the league. In fact, I think defenses were actually very cognizant of what they were trying to do. And it's very difficult to I should say this. In McCarthy's case, it was very difficult to scheme anything out of what he was not comfortable doing. And his comfort is going downfield, attacking the downfield routes and stuff like that with all receivers. I get that, but teams were they were playing a lot of cover 2, cover 3 deep zones, and they were running routes right into them. You have to devise ways to get your guys open. If you see that on tape, if you're watching tape, you have to see that kind of stuff. And that's the only question I would have for McCarthy is why didn't you change things up this year when it was plain as day?
Scrub brush, baby. Took a scrub brush.
The only scrub brush.
Like I said, I think it was a toothbrush, a dirty toothbrush.
I'll go with a toothpick. It really just shocked me that there was just no above and beyond creativity in the offense this year.
Well, he brought in Joe Philbin. That reeks of a good old boy hire. And I mean, they said that obviously he's the interim coach, and I'm sure he's a great guy and all that. But I'm telling you right now, if he gets hired as the head coach, I'm going to become a Bears fan.
Oh, no way.
If you're gonna go to a fan, why don't you just become a Vikings fan?
I don't know what I'll do. I'll be very angry, but
yeah, I get what you're coming from, though.
Looking over some of the notes here. So, in terms of, we may as well look at coaches and hot names out there and whatnot. To be perfectly honest, I'm not too familiar with all the names. I've heard of some of the college ranks, and I know some of the NFL, but I'm pretty disconnected from some of it. The one that keeps coming up everywhere all the time is Josh McDaniels, and that's all fine and dandy. But I look at him in two instances, and both were failures. Number one, he was an absolute unmitigated abomination in Denver, and they'll go, well, maybe he learned from it and he'll be better. Well, keep in mind, he was going to be named the Colts head coach, and then he backed out. He took it.
That's right.
Backed out. I mean, I don't know if you can trust that guy as far as you can throw him. So he does not strike a lot of confidence. I mean, maybe he's a great play caller and he has got a scheme and all that, but I personally don't want anything to do with the guy.
Oh, I would disagree with that. I think if you can talk him into the fact that you have the best quarterback talent-wise of our generation here, and you have a good backbone to build off of. I mean, you have decent players here. You have the David Bakhtiaris, you have the Corey Lindsays, Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams. You have some decent players here. They're going to have to be real aggressive this offseason. And if Josh McDaniels comes in here, you're going to have to sell him on the fact that we are going to load you up with guys to make you excel. But the thing with Josh McDaniels is he does not need weapons to excel. I mean, he is very creative. In New England, if when we played him earlier this year, they were killing us over on the crossing routes and underneath. So he's a very creative offensive mind. The part that would worry me with him is he is a very strong-willed, strong-minded coach. Is that going to butt heads with a strong-willed, strong-minded Aaron Rodgers?
Well, he needs it. This is like 2005 again, where you had mentioned this, Jeremy, where a lot of similarities with how Favre at his time of his career and how things where he was, how things were playing out with his role and his status within the organization. They need, because when McCarthy came in here, he basically, quote unquote, reined Favre in. And his second year, he played great, got him to the NFC Championship game. Basically one bad throw away from the Super Bowl. The same kind of narrative is playing out right now. And Rodgers has said, I need to be coach. I love to be coach. I think it's a bunch of horse shit personally, but
right.
I mean, for him saying it, but they need somebody to come in here and challenge the guy. No shit.
Is it even possible?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Possible. It's entirely possible. You have to set that person in place. And in this case, you have to set Rodgers in place. You have to remind him that he's the player and you're the coach. And if you got a problem with it, then we're going to have problems here and we're not going to win. Because the only way that you're going to win is that you get on the same page, you figure it out, and you work towards a common goal, which is obviously get into the Super Bowl. If you guys cannot get on the same page, then don't even come here. And that would be the problem I could see with McDaniels, is I think he's very egocentrical. I think he, coming here being a head coach, he's, in New England, he's second fiddle. He can kind of sit underneath the shadows and just kind of call the offense, because Belichick is not an offensive guy. He's a defensive guy. So he can completely lead this offense and do whatever he wants as long as Bill is okay with it. But here he would have to lead a team. I have to question whether he'd have that ability. But I think after his debacle in Denver, 6-7 years ago, I think he's learned from one of the best coaches of our generation as well. He's won many Super Bowls. He's been to many Super Bowls. He has been in positions where he has succeeded. And that is
why did he quit on the Colts though? That was freaking Bush League. And that was years after. Like I said, I think that's horseshit. And apparently, they were the thought was, or the rumor going around was that Belichick's going to retire and he's in line to take over basically as the head coach of the Pats.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what concerns me actually more than anything was, I mean, you can have a bad sin as your first go around, but he's kind of a snake in the grass because years later he was set up to do the same thing, took it, and then he frickin' backed out. That's horseshit in my mind.
It's horseshit.
Maybe a great play caller and all that, but that is unprofessional beyond belief.
But just think about what you have to do here in order to get in your good graces here. You just have to win. That's what McCarthy did early on in his career. For the first half of his career, he was very successful. He won a lot of games. And then that obviously kind of got everybody real comfortable thinking that, okay, as long as we have McCarthy here and Aaron Rodgers here, we don't have to put much of a team around everybody to succeed, because Aaron will bail us out. Aaron has been our saving grace for many years. Obviously, it has not happened this year, but the Packers have depended so much on him to bail them out that it has covered up deficiencies on the roster. Last year, it covered up deficiencies in the front office. This year, we're seeing deficiencies on the field. So we've got a two-horn battle that we're playing right now. We've taken care of the front office. That's to be determined. But, now we have to worry about what the product in the field is. And we have our work cut out here. And that's the one part I would like about Josh McDaniels is I think he could get a lot out of this offense. I think he could get Aaron Jones to produce 1,500 total yards on offense and possibly more. He'd be the Alvin Kamara of this day and age. I really feel like he could do that. He would know how to take advantage of Davante Adams even more so than what he has been taking advantage of. I feel confident he could get Jimmy Graham in place just to make plays. So I feel confident that he can get a lot out of little. So that's the guy that if you're looking for somebody to step in here and probably take a less talented team a lot farther than what they should have in their first year, he's your guy, in my opinion.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. Some of the other names I saw poking around there were, was it John Harbaugh from the Ravens? Yawn, I mean, I know that the shiny object right now is kind of the, what is it? The guy from,
Lincoln Riley.
The Rams Lincoln Riley is from Oklahoma, right?
Yeah.
But the young, the super young offensive guys, I'm not saying that's right, but the Packers, they did after McCarthy, very blasé, they do need some creativity. I don't know who it would be. I don't know the right guy. I just know that they need some creativity in that offense. I don't know if it needs to be some guy who's in his 30s, if he's in his 50s or whatever. People are saying even like Bruce Arians and all this. I just think he needs to be a younger guy, and maybe of the college ranks. But
I agree with that. Something completely different than we had. That's kind of what you look for.
And that they need to get up to speed with where the NFL's going. I mean, the Packers have been, West Coast offense and all that is fine, but they've been way too it's some of this stuff has kind of passed him by, and maybe that's, why some of this is resulted in what it's resulted in. Hell, even on defense,
Right. I don't think they're going to go college level. As much as I would like to see a Lincoln Riley come in here, the problem with Lincoln Riley is Oklahoma is going to throw a wad of money and responsibility at him, more so than what he has currently. So there's a lot of talk there that Oklahoma is going to do anything to keep him, and the only way that he's going to come into the NFL is if he becomes one of the highest paid coaches. And you're asking a lot of a 35-year-old to come into the league, be one of your top paid coaches, and you're putting a ton of pressure on that individual. You got to be extremely confident. I think most of their candidates are going to come from the coordinator / quarterback coach mold. Matt LaFleur from the Tennessee Titans offensive coordinator, 39 years old. He has coached with Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay. He's also worked closely with Kirk Cousins, Matt Ryan, and Jared Goff. So there's one name to think of there. Excuse me. One guy that just came up recently was the Chiefs offensive coordinator, Eric Bieniemy, a former NFL running back back in the day, who is now in his first year as Andy Reid's offensive coordinator. A lot of rave reviews about him. He's very inspirational. He knows how to get a lot out of players, and he knows how to get the most out of players because he's still a young gentleman. John DeFilippo, offensive coordinator from the Minnesota Vikings. The one concern I have with him is this year they become almost the identical Green Bay Packer mantra where they pass the ball 70% of the time. I just don't want to see a coach come in here and have that same philosophy. It's not going to work with the talent we have. We got to be a little bit more efficient and use the running game with that as well. So I'm not really sold on him. There's a quarterbacks coach from the Rams, Zach Taylor,
okay.
Former Nebraska quarterback. He's actually the son-in-law of former Packers head coach Mike Sherman.
Well, bless our hearts.
So there's your tie right there.
Makes sense.
And then their offensive coordinator, Sean Waldron, who's very well renowned and has a high respect factor from a lot of his colleagues in the NFL. So I think they're going to go. Honestly, I mean, does age matter? No. Right now, your choices are a good coach or an average coach.
I hear you.
The good coaches, truly, there's nothing proven out there. The only proven guys are John Harbaugh, and he's still with the Ravens, so there's no guarantee that he's going to be let go. And Bruce Arians, who, in Indianapolis, took over for Vic Fangio and did a stellar job in the 1 year that he was there when Vic was, when
it was Chuck Pagano, wasn't it?
Chuck Pagano, I'm sorry, when he was battling cancer or whatever it was. But as soon as he went out to Arizona, that team took off, but then he lost the team after, 4 or 5 years and he was gone. So that's the thing that concerns me is his track record is very short lived. So that tells me he's like the John Harbaugh or the Jim Harbaugh type, where he's, he gets on players' good graces right away, but then he wears on them because he's just constantly, he's like that girl in high school that just keeps on bugging you and wants to go on a date,
That didn't happen to me, bud.
Oh, that happened to me all the time. Well, no, I'm just kidding. But the one thing that I heard today, I don't know if you guys heard this, was Gutekunst's favorite candidate. Rumor is Jim Harbaugh, the coach at
Jim Harbaugh
at Michigan. Yeah. So, and then maybe we don't want to give Goot all the power to hire a coach because it sounds like he is very much a favorite of his. So
that's stunning.
What would you guys think of that?
Jim Harbaugh?
Yeah.
Probably become a Bears fan, I think.
Well, here's the deal. We have our window of opportunity is 5 years. He would be that 5-year guy, and then he'd be gone because he would lose the team. Mm-hmm. But I think he would light a fire under this team, which they need desperately. I mean, they need somebody to come in here and just kick ass and take names. And
it is very cushy. I'll say that. Everything,
right.
It was interesting because that SI article came out and it was talking about how over the years, Ted Thompson, when he was running it, everything was very rigid and everything was really controlled. I don't know. From what I saw on the outside, everything seemed pretty cushy. And maybe that's, I say, seemed pretty cushy to draft picks, because under his, as we all know, if you're a Ted Thompson draft pick, you ain't getting cut. You're making the team. You know what I mean? You aren't getting cut. You're not getting put on. I mean, you are making the team. So you don't have to worry. You don't have to worry. It almost seems like they didn't have to worry about their job. So the whole control thing, it was about like, you can't wear your hat backwards on the sideline, all this bullshit. And I'm just like, okay, whatever. But
he would be one guy that would challenge Aaron Rodgers, and it could be a
Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah, it would be.
I can see that.
It would be.
I've heard Jeff Tedford too, which was his college coach.
Yeah, that's not happening. He has no experience besides in the college ranks, so that's not happening.
It's going to be a very interesting next, year, because you got this draft class looks pretty good. Doesn't look, the best thing ever, but I'll say it looks pretty good for Gutekunst. But obviously they have to get a new coach. They're probably going to have to get a new head coach and a new all these new assistants. Is Pettine going to stay?
I think so.
You think he will?
I think he will.
Who knows? I'd like him to stay, but there's going to be a hell of a lot of turnover on we'll say veteran defensive players. Clay Matthews is going to be gone. Nick Perry is going to be gone. There's a lot of turnover, and there's going to need to be a lot of injection of young talent and free agent talent. This is going to be huge offseason. Huge. Because I've often said that this past year seemed like a rebuilding year in disguise. And I think they thought, when I say they, I think maybe it was McCarthy, Gutekunst, and Murphy thought they could get away with it and not have people see it. They didn't. They didn't really get away with it, because part of the issue was they don't have enough talent. They had a lot of injuries, but they do not have a whole lot of talent around there.
Well, in our eyes, they don't have a lot of talent, but in their eyes, they felt like they were Super Bowl contenders. They truly did. You don't fire a coach
barring injuries, I suppose.
Barring injuries, but you don't fire a coach, 3/4 of the way into the season if you didn't have the anticipation or the the analysis that you were a Super Bowl contending team. There's just no way you do that. So they came into this year with high hopes. They overvalued a lot of players, and it did not work out the way that it was going to. And the team pretty much just kind of laid an egg, and we're sitting where we're at today with no, coach really to speak of at this point in time.
What specific players do you think that they overvalued? We'll say
both safeties.
Both safeties. Justin McCray, Jimmy Graham,
Nick Perry,
Clay Matthews,
Randall Cobb.
There was a guy I was trying to remember, and I couldn't.
He was hurt. He's been hurt for 2/3 of the year. But
Kentrell Bryce, I think Dakota touched on that, but I think his ball skills are just nowhere near what they need to be in this league. So they completely overvalued him. Besides that, the biggest one to me was Justin McCray, because it all starts up front. And when your offensive line,
offensive line is a fucking mess. So
right. When your offensive line can't block,
you got Bakhtiari, Corey Linsley, and the rest is trash. I hate to say it. They got some real issues there. And I think that obviously that honestly contributed to some of the issues, on offense and just continuity this year, because
no doubt,
the Rodgers getting sacked on third down all the time. That's one thing, but there were times when, he would take the ball and he would have pressure in a second, Well,
on the play that he was hurt, that's exactly what happened against the Bears. He got the ball and it was lights out.
Yeah.
No protection. My philosophy in football is, if you can protect your quarterback and you can disrupt your opposing quarterback, you're going to be a highly successful team. Point blank.
I believe it. So I guess we can kind of shift to the rest of the season. What are we looking to Who are we looking to evaluate? What are we looking to do? What are the expectations? I don't know.
Everybody's being evaluated. Everybody's on a tryout basis right now because when you get rid of your head coach, and we're in the position where we're at, where I don't care what anybody says, we're not a playoff team. Quit getting it in your head that we are in the playoff. Our hopes are still there. No, seriously. Bullshit. Season's done. Wrap it up. Okay.
They've been saying that for weeks. I love that.
Well, no doubt. But, but this is the final.
You know what's funny, though? Sorry, real quick. You know what's funny? If they win out, they'll have a winning record. And they shit can their coach.
You should become a Bear fan.
You talk about some misleading stats.
Oh, my God.
There you go.
Andy, you have to become a Bear fan now.
It's tempting. I'm telling you, it's tempting. They got a good team.
No, don't say that. They got one of the easiest schedules in the league.
I think they've only beat two winning teams, maybe.
Yeah.
Right, and they just lost the Giants. So
now, wasn't it true that they tried to get Packers tried to get Khalil Mack?
Yeah, of course.
Why didn't they get him?
Because
they didn't offer him enough money.
No, the Oakland Raiders thought the Bears were going to finish worse than the Packers, and we're going to get better draft picks in return. Boy, how shitty that turned out.
Oh man, that is some. Yeah, that's some silly shit right there. Makes sense though. Man alive. That's depressing, but yeah.
It's depressing, but would he have made that much of a difference?
No. I mean, he wouldn't. No. He would have been. Obviously, he would have helped a lot, but
no doubt.
Just that logic.
Right.
Funny.
Right.
Tells you what everybody thinks of the Bears, but
yeah.
We shall see. Oh, I think Dakota popped off again. He's had enough.
But I mean, I think it's a tryout for a lot of these players. I think Clay Matthews, his career is pretty much done here. But if he were to, step it up a notch here in the next 4 games and do something, they would consider bringing him back.
As much at a reduced rate. At a reduced rate.
We're not going to sign him to $20 million or anything like that. But
wait, this is the last year of his deal.
Yes, he's done after this year. So is Cobb.
Okay, I couldn't remember that. Sorry, I know Cobb was done.
Yeah.
I would move on from Matthews. I'd move on from Cobb. I would dump Perry in a second.
They're going to. God damn it. They're going to. They can save themselves $11 million and be $50 million over the cap for next year. That would give them a nice fresh start to a new coaching staff and a new possibility. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I've been begging on their talent all year long, but they are not that far from being back in Super Bowl contention. I mean, if they do all the right moves this offseason, if they shore up the offensive line, if they get a tight end that can stretch the field, if they get a wide receiver that can stretch the field, if they get a pass rush and some safeties.
Wait a minute. Dakota just came in. He named himself Mike McCarthy. Hey. On the screen. I'm like, holy shit, what's going on here? Did McCarthy get wind of our press conference and he wants to...
Oh, my God.
He's had enough.
Oh, it's funny.
Well,
sorry.
Mike, what do you think? How's it going today?
Well, we're pad level. We're stacking successes, and just like anything else.
You think Mike watches the rest of the season? Packers at home?
No. You think what? Wait, I'll tell you what. You got it. He's going to Cleveland. Got to be going to Cleveland. No. You don't think?
No. That's not a for sure thing.
They act like he did a job right away. I mean, I think he will, but I mean, is he at a hot option right now?
That's what's funny. It's like
he's probably your best option of any coach out there. He's probably your best option.
Would you let him be the play caller?
Yeah, I would.
I'm telling you, that play calling sheet, it might just be a waffle. I don't know.
This is the only disagreement Andy and I will have. I've always liked Mike McCarthy as far as an offensive play calling standpoint. I know Andy doesn't. But I can go back and show you many, many clips where this offense thrived under him and in the great plays over the years. It just the tail end of his career just did not work out, and it was obviously going downhill. I will fully admit that.
But why didn't it? But why did it go downhill?
Lack of talent. Ted Thompson.
It was more on Ted. Okay.
Yeah. Everything draws back to your talent and obviously coaching as well. But I mean, our talent level this year without Aaron Rodgers, and you said this, Andy, we are a top 5 draft team without Aaron Rodgers. And truly this year we would be, because Aaron is not even playing close to the level he's played in years past. So this year, you know,
his play, we should focus on that a little bit. I don't want to bounce around too much, but I mean, I know you have the knee injury, right? And that was all kidding aside about that. That was a bad knee injury. Happened in the first half, the first game of the season. And that's a 4 to 6 week knee injury. Mm-hmm. So they put the big brace on it, and he wasn't practicing a whole lot, but he's playing in games. That probably didn't help. And I've said this earlier, that I think that this is kind of a conspiracy type thing, but I think they almost looked at it and they're like, okay, if we don't have Rodgers play, we're going to be exposed for what we are, a very, very bad football team. So they most other teams would have shut down the player or quarterback with a knee injury like that for 4 to 6 weeks to let it heal. But the Packers were like, we can't do that because everybody's going to see how bad of a football team we are. So we have to have him take that brace, put it on and play. I mean, that's obviously just kind of tongue in cheek, but
okay, good.
in a way, it's kind of true.
That's a part that concerns me with this team is they came in this year, and I'm positive that Mark Murphy, Mike McCarthy, and Brian Gutekunst. I would say Gutekunst probably didn't as much as the other two, but I would say Mark Murphy and Mike McCarthy thought they were Super Bowl contenders. That does not surprise me. It wouldn't shock me if that were the case. The problem that I have with that is, and I completely lost my train of thought because I was thinking at 10 miles an hour here.
10? And you lost your train of thought? I think at like 100 miles an hour. Come on.
That's a problem when you get over 40, though.
Oh, it's funny.
No, I was going to say, his talent evaluation, number one, if you think this is a Super Bowl contending team, was way off. Way off. Mm-hmm. Number two, when Brian Gutekunst today said that he did not feel Aaron Rodgers was having a bad year. I understand why he said that, because you're not going to call out your team in the current season. I do get that.
Yeah. It's almost like he had to. But
it's almost like he had to, and with Murphy standing right next to him, I mean, most definitely he had to do that. But I mean, come on, let's not even answer that question. Let's do it. Let's pull a Randall Cobb and plead the fifth on that one. That was ridiculous, because any person with a mind realizes that Aaron Rodgers has had probably his worst career year this year. There's no question about it.
And his stats, that's what's funny. His stats look, I mean, he's got one interception. He's breaking records for how many consecutive passes without interception, but he's got an insane amount of throwaways. Packers are number one in throwaways. He's not throwing anything down the middle of the field. It's all going outside of the numbers. He's obviously not taking any chances. So it could be somewhat misleading,
Third down conversion rates are 27 in the league right now.
Third down is, boy, I don't know what to say about this team in third down. They were like 2 for 2, I think, against Arizona, and then they went 0 for 8 the rest of the game.
Right. It doesn't matter. And we were saying earlier in the year that they just need to make their third downs more manageable. So the second half of the year, they made their downs more manageable, and it didn't become more manageable because they kept on fucking themselves over,
Yeah.
Holds. Look at yesterday. We had a 3rd and 11 in the third quarter there, and we had Randall Cobb wide open first down. And what happens? Jason Spriggs holding 10 yards, 3rd and 21. Down distance. Over.
Jason Spriggs. They need to move on from him.
Those are the plays right there that just kill you. When you have earned a first down, you cannot be given that stuff back. I mean, you cannot do that. And this year they've done that more so than any other year in Mike McCarthy's era. So, the 4 games too. This is also going to be kind of like a tryout for Philbin. I firmly believe that they have him as one of those guys that they're considering. I don't think he's highly considered, but he's one of those guys that they are considering. Now, Andy, I know you don't like that, but but they see comfort in people that they know. You know, this is an organization.
That's the problem.
It's almost like the Al Capone, you know, where he had his cottage up north.
What? It's almost like the mafia?
Yes. Yes.
Pretty close.
You know,
no, I get that. And the Packers are so conservative. They haven't gone out of the Holmgren tree and all this kind of stuff. Well, fucking now's the time to do it. Okay. Now's the time you don't have to go crazy and make some crazy hire, but get a little uncomfortable. Get around to more of the you know, the news, the new trends that are going around in the NFL. You know, now's the time to do it. But you know, I don't expect it to be a big splash hire. But who the hell knows? I mean, look, I'll be perfectly honest. When they hired McCarthy, I was like, who the hell is this guy? You know. And then Ted Thompson, his first choice in the draft, obviously was Aaron Rodgers. You're like, who's this? You really don't know how anything's gonna play out. But I don't know.
Well, just so you know, when they hired McCarthy in 2006, his last year in San Francisco,
he was horrible as he was like 31st offense or something.
32nd in yards, 30th in points. That right there tells you the whole story. So.
And they skipped
who we're going to hire.
And they didn't want Rodgers. They picked Alex Smith.
Right.
Yikes. I don't know. So the last 4 games, like you were saying, it's going to be, you know, a tryout for Philbin. What other young players have they not been playing a whole lot that could be playing? I'm trying to think. I unfortunately, I still just don't recognize a ton of this roster, but.
Right. And I think there's guys out there that, you know, Jamon Moore coming to my head as first example, who has obviously underachieved this year. He's had problems with the drops. This could be a time where you just say, hey, we're going to give you a lot of game action. We're going to see what you can do, you know, and hopefully this town takes over. Honestly, I think this is also an opportunity to see what Aaron Jones can do, because we have not seen truly. We've gotten glimpses, but we have not seen what this guy can truly do if he's given the ball 30 times a game. And I'm not talking about 30 rushes. I'm just talking about combined 30 touches per game would be ideal for him. So he would be a guy that you're going to, you know, at least try to incorporate a little bit more, because we have not. On the defensive side, there's really nothing left to play because everybody's hurt there. I mean, you got Tyler Lancaster filling in for Mike Daniels. You got
they are freaking banged up on defense. They put Perry on IR. They got Trevor Davis made it like 10 minutes, and then he hurt his hamstring. It was a hammy again, right?
Yes, it was. You know, now that I think about it, there is one guy I'd like to see more, and that's Oren Burks. I really don't know what happened to him, because he came into the year really high on him, and then all of a sudden he got hurt, and I understand that, but he has played a handful of snaps at most in every game since the 5th game of the year, and that 4th game of the year, excuse me. I just don't know what happened there. You know, my analysis on him is I don't think he was NFL ready at this point, that he was purely a gizmo kind of or a gadget kind of a guy, you know, or a third down specialist that can cover running backs and stuff like that, but he hasn't even been given the opportunity. So, I mean, he would be a guy that you would want to get a lot of reps in and see what he can do. Antonio Morrison is who we picked up in the before the regular season in a trade. You know, we've seen what he can do. He's physical, he's tough, but you know, you drafted Burks for a reason. Let's get him out there and get him playing and see what he can do.
Yeah,
and,
you know,
and even, you know, why not Deshaun Kaiser? Why not put him out there?
Ask Aaron Rodgers about that.
That'd be nice. My goodness. You know, the other thing, just team-wise, I've said this in the past, but and now it rings true, because, I mean, the new coach, hopefully there's a philosophy to this, and hopefully Gutekunst values this too. This team needs speed so bad. They are so fucking slow collectively. I mean, their linebackers are slow. They might be, you know, good guys to stop in the run, but they are slow as a team. They need to get some speed interjected everywhere. I mean, I remember when they kept putting Tramon Williams back on punt returns, and I love Tramon.
Oh man!
But I mean, he's like 48, and I'm just like, it's just a microcosm of how it's like they have a lot of try-hard guys, but that's fine and dandy to have a few of them, but you need speed. And they don't really have it.
I will take it a step further. You need football players, not athletes. I think their analysis over the years has been the best athlete and not so much the best football player.
Could be.
I think they need to change that and make a swift change in the offseason and go towards the football player rather than the guy that can run a 4.2 and jump 42 inches in the air, because that's not going to help you when you can't read the field. So I would think that's a step in the right direction. And they're not that far off. I mean, if they make they got 2 picks in the first round next year, just like the Saints did, a couple of years ago with Marshawn Lattimore and Alvin Kamara, that turned that team around. I mean, it was the galvanizing moment even before the season began, but I mean, that really parlayed them into being one of the best teams in the NFL. So, how far off are we? I don't think we're that far off unless we have to draft right. We have to be spot on with our first picks in the first 4 rounds. We have to get those guys.
And we got to do better with free agency. I mean, you look at let's just call it what it is. Jimmy Graham was a freaking bust. It was bad. What was the other guy? Muhammad Wilkerson. That's bad luck. I think he hurt his ankle. And then there was one other guy. Who am I missing?
Mercedes Lewis.
And he's a blocking tight end, so he's serviceable. But Jimmy Graham, that was not a good. You could say, yeah, you tried, but
is he on the team next year?
Can't be. He's slow as shit. I'm sorry.
He is slow. I mean, it looks like his legs weigh 1,000 pounds.
Yeah, it's amazing how fast some of these guys. I mean, he used to be, obviously a badass and just wrecking the league, but it's amazing how fast you can lose some of the speed. And it's what's crazy. I mean, obviously the league gets younger every year and these players get older, You got this massive amount of like 19, 20-year-olds coming in the league. And then you got these guys that are like him they're just getting, you got Graham, who's like 32, 33, and he's lining up against a 20-year-old speedster. I've always wondered about that, how those diametric forces oppose, how you just can really fall off the map. But it's inevitable. So I would move on from him, but
I would too.
And you can. It'll be a little bit of a cap hit, but
right.
It's not going to be significant as if we were to get rid of Aaron Rodgers this offseason. So there's a positive for you.
Did you say something about getting rid of Aaron Rodgers?
I'd be down with that.
Oh, you're going to have to expand on this, buddy.
Yeah, I can. I've been the biggest fan of Aaron Rodgers. Okay. I have his Super Bowl jersey. You went to the Super Bowl to see him win. I think everybody in Titletown is galvanized by this gentleman. This year, show me a lot. If you leaders in times of trouble, leaders step up and they show their true colors when you're down in the dumps. And this year showed me a lot. I think he's pouted. He has pointed fingers. He's been self-destructive. I think his penchant to just keep on holding on to the ball instead of just taking what the defense gives him on the checkdowns and underneath, he's his own worst enemy. But the part that really concerns me is that inflated head on his shoulders. It's his ego. And I had a friend of mine say this years ago after, I think it was 2014, that you're never going to go far with Aaron Rodgers because he's going to grow bigger than the team. And I truly did not see that. And honestly, today, I finally see that. I think his head has grown.
Oh, it's like Favre, basically. Favre repeated.
I wouldn't say as big as Favre because I think a lot of that was just what precipitated during the offseason and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, this has been totally in season. This has all happened in the season where, he's changed. I truly believe that he can sit there and deny it all that he wants, but I can show him multiple plays and multiple circumstances where he has gotten worse. After the Buffalo game, he specifically called out Mike McCarthy in the media. And as much as he said that him and Mike McCarthy more than any other year have met more one-on-one this year, why would you go in the media and say that about your coach?
Yeah.
That's not a leader. A leader goes behind closed doors and irons it out face to face. So I know I've said he's a coward in one of the past episodes. I firmly believe that, because a man would go and iron that out face to face. He is not. From what I know, he has not done that. He has said some things over the years that have pointed out and called out specific coaching members, and you just don't do that. You don't do that. And even this year, I feel so sorry for the rookies on this team, especially Marquez Valdes-Scantling and Equanimeous St. Brown. When you're going into the huddle and your play call is coming in, and you know the play call, but then all of a sudden Aaron on the side says, "Hey, Devontae, I want you to run a 10-yard out," or whatever it is, and then, Scantling's on that side of the ball and he's like, "Okay, I'm supposed to run a 10-yard out. What am I supposed to do?" So, the rookies are the game right now is so fast to them, and you need to make it as X and Y as simple as possible for them. Now you have them confused because, Rodgers is going outside of the play to try to make things happen. So I could go on, but I won't, because we've had enough negativity on here. But he has truly disappointed me this year. And I hope this offseason that he has a come to Jesus moment and he realizes that he's not all that he's up to be, that he's a football player, but he's not the world. He's truly not the world.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. And you would think, this is, to me, it's common sense, that he would know that. But he's also, I've made the comment that Rodgers, from a public perspective, he's surly and he can be pretty obtuse and he's very passive aggressive. Those things aren't going to change, and if this is truly what he wanted, he got what he wanted, and now it's up to him to. I shouldn't say up to him. It shouldn't be up to him to get the next coach or the next GM.
That's crazy.
Whoever they give him, it's up to him to do something, because if Rodgers stinks it up the next 2 or 3 years, that's gonna tell you something,
Mm-hmm.
And he's not gonna handle that well. No.
I'm giving him one more year.
Ooh, nice.
I mean, one more year with a different. I do put a lot on McCarthy and the offense being so bad. I think it ruined Rodgers kind of mentally. I don't think he had the confidence, and certainly there's no rhythm. I don't know. I think I give him one more year. I think if we get a good coach in, if he doesn't perform next year, then we don't have any excuses for him. So to me, he's got one year.
I mean, when you say 1 year, 1 year of left the Packers?
5 years left with them.
What 1 year for me to know that if he's still in his prime and can do it. That's what I mean by 1 year.
Well, at this point, it doesn't matter because we paid him to be the best player in the league.
Right.
We had the ability to go into 2020 and possibly negotiate a contract next year. But now we have tied ourselves to him for 6 years because there's no way you can get out of there in any cheap way, shape, or form. That's not going to hurt this team financially. So they just laid the big one. And I didn't like the signing this year because I felt like it was too late to do it because of where he was at in his career. He's 34 years old. There's a certain age that all guys, they tend to go downhill. Is this that year? I don't know. It's too early to tell. But we're tied to him till he's 40 years old. And that's ugly to think about. If he's producing like this, not good at all. Yeah,
I'm actually right here. I'm reading while we're talking, I'm kind of going back and forth reading an article about from a guy who basically he's of the camp that McCarthy has ruined Rodgers. He's completely on that camp. He thinks Rodgers is the best thing that's ever happened in the league, and he thinks McCarthy is absolutely, and Ted and McCarthy have absolutely destroyed Rodgers. And he's showing some footage of some plays and some other games and whatnot from this year. And so this part of this is making me go, maybe it is. We'll see what he does have, but or with a new offense and with other players and whatnot. But I don't know. I think it always kind of lies somewhere in the middle. Who the hell knows?
If he was so for accepting coaching, whenever McCarthy would come to him, why does he get pissed off? If he's all about coaching and embracing coaching and growing and building himself, why is he so standoffish to any help that he were to get or any criticism, whether it's light criticism from inside the team. If he wants to get pissed off with the media, that's one thing, because that's an outside voice that, has no tie to the team. But when your guys inside are telling you, hey, Aaron, why didn't you take a check down on that play on 3rd and 2? Aaron Jones is wide open, and he gets pissed off over it. I know he does, because why would any coach this year not want to coach him? And they were not coaching him this year. Cignetti has not been near him on the sidelines. Mike McCarthy hasn't been near him much. Joe Philbin's up in the booth. So who has been down his throat to tell him that he has underperformed or he didn't see a certain player, a certain guy open? It's yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're starting over, I can't see, the Packers, unless they hire Philbin, the Packers are, they're going to be getting a coach that on some level is either going to want his own players, different players, or he's just going to run a different offense. And, Rodgers knows this offense, backwards, sideways, whatever. He probably has more latitude than any quarterback in the league to change at the line. So how acceptable will he actually be to coaching? If he likes the offense and what it can bring, I think you would think he could. And if he is the talent, and if he has the cerebral nature, he should be able to go from this, quote, archaic, simple offense of McCarthy to something more, we'll call it that uses more schematic, more scheme to get guys open, and more these newer things. He should be able to do that pretty damn quicker than any quarterback, and that remains to be seen. But we'll have to wait and see.
I mean, if they really want to help Aaron out, I know we need weapons on the outside. We need receivers, but I think if we really want to help out Aaron, we got to protect him better. I
agree with that completely.
He cannot be worrying about his life on every single down, and his internal clock can't be going 1, 2, oh shit. It's got to be 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh shit, I got all this time in the world. There's my open receiver. That's what made Aaron good back in the day, was his protection was pretty damn good, and he had all day to find it. And guys back then were willing to work, or they were willing to work to get open for him as well, where this year I have not seen that happen. So it's been a combination of bad blocking and guys, young guys that just don't know how to work with Aaron quite yet. So number one, they have to give him better blocking. That's where they have to start.
Yeah, I agree with you. The offensive line was, God, I mean, it's amazing watching. I mean, now we don't have, that's the other thing with the team. When you look at our edge rushers and, the defensive line in general, I mean, Daniels got hurt. They got Kenny Clark, who's really an up-and-coming star. But if you look at when we played almost every other team, and maybe more, unless it just seems this way to me, though, but these other quarterbacks can actually step back, or they can take the snap, step back, set, scan the field, and throw. Rodgers, I'm trying to think of the last time he could take a 3 or 5 step drop or whatever, set, scan the field, and throw. It doesn't happen. And it does, when I say it doesn't happen this year, not all the time, but
the Bear
this
game.
year. Oh my God. You're right. And that he did. I guess they run the hurry up offense or whatever and just quick hitter. But this year, I mean, he is immediately under duress after he snaps. Almost every snap. He's rolling out on damn near everything.
Which then also begs the question, why wouldn't you want to up the speed of the tempo? Because then your defense is not getting set, and your offense should be set, because you're going at a tempo that you want to go at, where the defense is trying to catch its breath.
Yep. Yeah, I never did quite understand why they didn't run more than but I guess it's because they have too many young players. Is that right?
Right. I think that was the big reason why.
That, or maybe, I mean, they still didn't trust the offensive line. Who the hell knows? You still got to have trust for the offensive line.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
we got Atlanta coming up. What do we think about that game?
Oh, not man, much. I have such bad memories of Atlanta. I think they're still going to light it up against us. All of them.
I'll say this, though, guys. The best memory of the McCarthy era that I have was Atlanta, outside the Super Bowl, in the divisional game when Rodgers.
Yep.
That was one of the best football games by a quarterback, or just by.
He was good.
That was unfucking believable. He escaped like 7 sacks. He was throwing dimes. I mean, that Super Bowl year in 2010, basically, they got hot at the right time, and Rodgers ripped the league. He got hot at the exact right time, and for a 4-game stretch, he got on Superman mode and he just ripped. That's the level Rodgers could get at. He could rise so far above anything else with his talent, and Atlanta was a key. If you watch the highlights of the Atlanta game, the most impressive things are the sacks he escapes, almost more than the actual throws he makes. Right. It's unbelievable.
Right. And the key to that year as well. And I can't remember the Philadelphia game, but I don't think it happened. But the Atlanta game, the Chicago game, and the Super Bowl against Pittsburgh, we all had defensive touchdowns.
Defensive touchdowns, yep.
And they were game-changing ones. I mean, against a divisional round, Tramon Williams before halftime put the game literally out of reach. And then obviously in the NFC Championship with B.J. Raji, pretty much putting the game out of reach with his touchdown. And then Nick Collins, setting the tone of that game with, I think, the first or second touchdown of the game. So that was a key contributor to Aaron Rodgers playing really well that year as well.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you how bad I wanted an interception against the Cardinals just to turn the game around. Right. Drop the only one we had.
Right.
Yeah. Ugly. But, I mean, truth be told, for me, watching these next games, it's just looking at some of these younger players. And, as I think about it, I'm going to be watching Rodgers pretty damn close because he's a competitor. You got to think he's really going to want to, he's still going to want to win. But okay, here's a question for you then. So Philbin is the interim coach and he's calling plays. Are we going to be seeing the same exact offense the rest of the year?
No, I don't think so. I think it'll be more of a shorter game that will take its attempts downfield. But I don't think it's going to be consistently running 10, 15, 20-yard routes down the field. Philbin's a lot smarter than that. I firmly believe that. And if he isn't, then you guys can seriously bury me in the snow. But
bury me in the snow. That's funny. Yeah. I mean, it's been a while since we haven't talked. Well, I guess last year we didn't talk playoffs either because Rodgers got hurt. But with a quote unquote healthier Aaron Rodgers, it's been a while. But
yeah,
it's been the most upheaval there's been since 2005.
Right.
This season was almost a mirror image of that season. Although Rodgers had like 29 interceptions that year. Favre did. Rodgers has. Think about that. Favre had 29 interceptions. Rodgers has 1. That
right.
is insane. Even if he's not taking a lot of chances, that is crazy.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Oh boy.
What do you guys want to see the rest of the season as fans? I mean, what positives do you want to see happen?
Well, it's to me personally, it's kind of hard to say, and that's because I hate to say this, but Philbin's going to be running this ship, and I like Philbin and all that, but if this is truly an audition for Philbin and he does quote unquote well and they hire him, I don't think that's a good move. I could be wrong. I'll eat crow. I just don't think.
I agree.
That does not sit well with me. It would be such a Packers conservative type move, but something tells me Gutekunst is more conservative. I mean, he's gaslighting Ted's roster. I really like that about Gutekunst. As they have to, he's getting rid of these guys. So hopefully they'll be more aggressive in that. But maybe Rodgers will take more chances. And they'll try to. Maybe the scheme will look a little different. We'll get to see how good these young receivers really are. I mean, he went away from them. He was starting to throw to MVS here and there, but then he disappeared after that.
Yes,
he was making. And who the hell knows why? I don't know. I mean, I would like to see a more quote unquote opened up Rodgers, but I don't think you're going to see that either because he doesn't like throwing interceptions. He knows his stats. He knows all that stuff. He's mindful of that. He's not stupid. So I don't think we're really going to see that. So I just don't want to see the team completely quit. And I want them to look outside the box for the next head coach. That's kind of where I'm at.
I agree with you. I want them to go outside of the organization and somebody that truly does no tie back to the Packers, that has never coached here or who's, never played here. I want somebody from the outside. I want a different mindset. I want a different variable here. The part that's I'm going to really watch in the next 4 games is obviously Aaron. I want to see his ability to lead this team. They have very little to play for in essence, but in hindsight, they have a lot to play for because of the fact that this team right now, it's like a strike team. It's a hodgepodge of players and you don't know where they're going to be next year. And if the guys truly want to be here, they're going to step it up a notch or 10 notches or 20 notches because so far this year, they have not done it. They have not executed well. That's the other thing I want to see I want to see solid execution. I want to see this team stop shooting themselves in the foot whenever they get a big play on third down.
Hold on a minute. I just thought of something. So they shit can McCarthy, but Zook is still employed.
Yeah.
Think he is next year?
No, he's gone.
I think so. Yeah.
I'm surprised they didn't say, with McCarthy, when he met with Murphy said, okay, do me a favor and just don't even have Zook come up here. Just tell him he's gone.
But why that didn't happen? They don't value special teams, so they don't care who is leading the special team because they don't. Even
no, that's a good point. That needs to change.
Look at them as part of the team. So
I've always said they look at it as special teams as a necessary evil.
Right. You know what? I think you bring up a great point. I think that's the other thing that we should look forward to in the next 4 games is to see what the special teams can do. Put Jair Alexander back there, and
they did finally. Took them 10 games.
They did, but I'm saying you put him back there and you allow him to return the ball now. See what kind of playmaking skills he has because we've seen glimpses of it. And the punt return, I know Elliott hates the punt return and kick return. Always get a penalty on it, and I totally agree with him. But at this point in time, we're 4-7-1. Who cares anymore?
Go for it. Right?
Go for it. I want to see this team be aggressive. I want to see them go for it on 4th down, and I want to see them run the ball on 4th down, and I want to see them run the ball on 4th and goal. I want to see aggressiveness. I want to see this team take a step above where they're at because right now, they're not going for it on 4th down or they are going for it on 4th down. And when they do and they don't, it's questionable. I just want that instinct to be right there and just say, we're going for it. We have nothing to lose. Because the mentality and the attitude on this team has to change, and it can only change on the field. And it can only change when you put players in position to make plays, and they have to do that. So I think that's where all that needs to happen in the next 4 games, and I'll be watching that very closely.
Yeah, that's about it. I mean, what about you, Dakota?
The main thing I just want to see is that I'd like to see the offense come to life a little bit. I'd like to see Aaron Rodgers play well so I can feel comfortable that he's still someone in his prime and I have something to look forward to next year, that we still have a good quarterback. And it's everything you guys said, but mainly I just want to see the offense get going again. Even from just a fan standpoint, something exciting to watch would be nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah. Very good point. But I want to leave on a good note here. Now, I want to say one thing.
Alrighty.
I was around in the 80s. We had season tickets with the Packers when they were probably the worst team in the NFL during that era. From 1968 to 1992. I don't go back that far, but I'm just talking about those 25 years in our existence. We had 2 playoff appearances in 25 years. We have had, under Mike McCarthy, we have had 9 playoffs. So it's good to be there. It's good to be in the playoff conversation. We weren't there. In the 80s, our biggest game of the year was the Bear game. That was our Super Bowl. And when your regular season game is your Super Bowl, you're bad. So the thing that I look forward to is since Holmgren came here and started this new trend with Ron Wolf and brought back the Titletown legacy, we have had some very good years here. And being absolutely rude about Mike McCarthy leaving and saying good riddance, people truly don't understand what it is to be on the bottom of the barrel unless you've lived in the 80s. Because I was born in 77 and I lived in the 80s, and those were the most trying years of any Packer fan's life.
I believe it, but I saw this on Twitter. Somebody put, and the whole structure of the team with the quadrilateral authority and all that kind of bullshit. It's structured like they were in the 80s, and so they're they're almost playing like they were in the 1980s. So that's the part where I don't have a whole lot of faith in Murphy, the cockamamie, setup, this 1 year deal or whatever, and then you have the worst season of Rodgers' career as a starter when healthy after you do this. Now, I'm not saying it's completely on that, but it's, I don't know, not good. I'm trying, to your point, I've been very negative too. I'm trying to think of some positivity. Some of the positive stuff in my mind actually is just it's the unknown of what's going to happen, and I'm excited for that.
Right.
It has been. I'll say this: it has been very, I don't want to say boring, mundane, but predictable. But that's what it's kind of been since every year after the Super Bowl, basically. Mm-hmm. You know what's coming up. How McCarthy's going to manage games. How the roster is going to be built. All those things. And now it's actually fun to be excited about some unknowns there, for lack of a better term.
Right. Couldn't agree more.
Yep. Yipper.
Well, are we beating Atlanta this weekend?
I don't think so.
They're going to beat them 48-0. They're going to show up.
Okay, Elliot.
Elliot. No, what's interesting? I'm going to be more excited to watch this game than the Cardinal game. That's for sure. And I didn't think I'm serious. I was just thinking about it just now.
Right.
But it's true, because you're gonna really see, I don't want to say what the mettle that this team has, because that's not, they're out of the playoffs and all that, but the only coach Aaron Rodgers has ever had, and a lot of these guys is gone. So before season's end, so we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
All righty, boys.
Well, it's been a trying year thus far. We're almost done. But I think we have to touch on Andy's point that the unknown is intriguing to think about.
Yeah.
We don't know what's going to happen, but the excitement behind that is very exciting that we haven't had in a long time here. So we do have something to look forward to. The only thing that I hope is that we continue success. And what I mean by that is just to be in a playoff conversation, because we don't want to go back to the after years when they were the afterthought of, they were like the minor leagues of the NFL. Yeah. We don't want to go back to those days.
No, you're right. Although I will say this, nothing lasts forever, number one, and the run as a franchise and consistency and obviously from Holmgren / Favre to now is unbelievable. I don't know has any franchise had that kind of, 30 something. It's incredible, So in a way, we are kind of spoiled. So you do have to kind of sit back and be a little bit humble about that. But at the same time, if you do still have a great quarterback and he's still relatively in his prime, got to make hay.
No doubt. No doubt.
All righty. Go Pack, go.
Go Pack, go.
Score predictions.
0-0.
I had to say it.
2-0.
2-0. All right, we'll take it.
All right, boys.
All right, see you guys.
Get back up.
Podcast.
Chair.
I know, right?